They say to never go into the basement after midnight. But last night something came up. I've always considered myself a rational person. Ghost stories, haunted houses, paranormal sightings, I never believed in any of it. Most of the time, there's a reasonable explanation hiding behind the fear. At least that's what I used to think, before the weekend that completely changed me. About a month ago, my longtime friend Marcus asked if I could stay at his house for the weekend while he and his wife celebrated their anniversary out of state. They had 2 kids who were away at camp and a massive German shepherd named Titan who needed company. Marcus lived far outside the city in a huge, modern home surrounded by woods. The place was beautiful during the day, but isolated enough that nights felt strangely silent. I agreed immediately. Free food, quiet surroundings, and a dog to hang out with sounded perfect. Friday evening went smoothly. Marcus showed me around again, stocked the kitchen with snacks, and joked before leaving, "Don't let the basement scare you." I laughed it off. Titan and I spent the night watching action movies in the living room. Around midnight, I finally headed upstairs to the guest room. Titan followed me and curled up beside the bed. Everything felt normal. At exactly 3:00 a.m., Titan exploded into barking. Not normal barking either. This sounded aggressive, deep, furious, nonstop. I shot awake and ran downstairs. Titan stood in the kitchen facing the basement door. Every hair on his body stood upright. He barked so violently that spit flew onto the floor. "Titan, relax." He ignored me completely. At first, I thought someone had broken in. Marcus had expensive electronics and tools downstairs. Maybe Titan heard movement. Trying to act braver than I felt, I grabbed a fireplace poker and approached the basement door. The moment my hand touched the knob, Titan let out a sharp cry and backed away. That was the first moment real fear crept in. I opened the door anyway. Cold air rushed upward immediately. Not normal basement cold either. The staircase disappeared into darkness, despite the light switch being on. Titan refused to follow me. I slowly walked down the stairs, calling out for anyone hiding down there. My voice echoed through the finished basement, but no one answered. I checked every room carefully. Storage closets, bathroom, laundry area. Nothing but the cold kept getting worse. Then I noticed something strange. Several framed family photos lying face down on the floor. I was positive they hadn't been like that earlier. A stool near the minibar had also tipped over. I picked everything back up, convincing myself Titan probably knocked something over earlier. But the deeper I walked into the basement, the more uneasy I became. There was also a faint smell in the air, wet and rotten, almost like something had been sitting there too long. I hurried upstairs. Titan immediately stopped barking once I closed the basement door, but he refused to leave the kitchen afterward. He just sat there staring at the door. Neither of us slept much for the rest of the night. The next morning, everything seemed completely normal again. No smell. No freezing cold air. Titan acted playful and relaxed, like nothing had happened. I even checked the basement during daylight. Everything looked fine. Still, something about the previous night stayed stuck in my head. And unfortunately for me, Saturday night turned out far worse. At 3:17 the next morning, Titan started barking again, but this time something downstairs barked back. I wish I could say I imagined the sound. I wish I could tell myself exhaustion caused it, or maybe the TV was still playing in the background. But deep down I know exactly what I heard. That second night, something answered Titan from the basement. Saturday had gone by peacefully enough. The dog acted completely normal. All day long we played outside, watched TV, and I even spent some time cleaning up the kitchen. The strange events from Friday night started feeling less terrifying as the hours passed. By nighttime, I'd almost convinced myself. Maybe Titan heard raccoons outside. Maybe the cold basement and weird smell were caused by old ventilation. Maybe the fallen pictures had simply slipped. But even while I tried rationalizing it, instead of sleeping upstairs, I stayed on the couch in the living room. I figured if Titan reacted again. Around midnight, the house became unnaturally quiet. No wind outside. No creaking walls. Nothing. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. Still glowing softly across the room, then suddenly, bark, bark, bark. Titan's barking jolted me awake so violently, my heart nearly stopped. The dog stood in the kitchen again, facing the basement door, but this time was worse. Much worse. He wasn't just barking, he was panicking. He paced back and forth, claws scraping across the tile floor while letting out these desperate cries between barks. Titan. Calm down, he ignored me completely. Then came the sound of a low scratching noise. From underneath the basement door, my entire body froze. It sounded slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across wood. Titan backed away, whining. Every instinct told me not to open that door. But fear and curiosity are a dangerous combination. I grabbed the same fireplace poker and stepped closer. The scratching stopped immediately. For several seconds, there was absolute silence. Then 3 knocks came from the other side. Knock, knock, knock. Not loud, not aggressive, almost polite. I stumbled backwards so quickly I nearly fell. Titan started growling in a way I'd never heard before, deep and guttural, like he was warning something to stay away. My hands were shaking uncontrollably now. I told myself there had to be a reason. Pipes expanding. Some animal trapped downstairs. Anything except what my imagination was suggesting. Against every survival instinct screaming inside me, I opened the basement door again. The smell hit first. Rotten, damp, sickening. Far stronger than the night before. The cold air rolled upward immediately, so icy it made my skin sting. Titan refused to come anywhere near the doorway. I slowly descended the stairs while gripping the poker tight enough to hurt my hand. Halfway down, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Every single framed family photo downstairs had been turned around again, not fallen over. Turned completely backward. Facing the wall, the bar stools were knocked over too. But that wasn't the worst part. At the far end of the basement, near the laundry room, I saw movement. Just for a second. Like someone stepping behind the corner. I shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. I forced myself forward anyway, my legs trembling harder with each step. The smell became unbearable. Near the laundry room, I reached the corner and swung around quickly. Nothing. Empty, but on the concrete floor nearby. There were wet footprints, bare human footprints, leading nowhere. They simply stopped in the middle of the basement floor. I stared at them for several seconds, unable to breathe properly. Every logical thought disappeared from my mind. Then upstairs, Titan suddenly yelped. Not barked. Yelped. Like something hurt him. I ran upstairs as fast as I could. Titan stood near the kitchen doorway, shaking violently, staring toward the hallway, leading deeper into the house. And for one horrifying second, I could have sworn I saw a dark figure standing at the end of the hallway. Before it disappeared into darkness, I grabbed Titan and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. But morning brought something even more disturbing. Because when I checked the basement again, the wet footprints were gone. I thought surviving the weekend meant it was over, until Marcus finally told me what the previous owner of the house did in that basement years earlier. Sunday morning felt unreal. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows, birds chirped outside, and Titan acted completely normal again. If I hadn't experienced the previous 2 nights myself, I probably would have convinced myself it was all stress-induced paranoia. But I knew what I saw: the turned-over photos, the freezing air, the footprints, and that shadow in the hallway. I barely touched breakfast. Titan followed me around the house, happily carrying one of his toys, completely different from the terrified animal he became at night. Watching him act normal somehow made everything even worse. I kept debating whether to call Marcus and ruin his anniversary trip. Every time I picked up my phone, I talked myself out of it. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, I think your basement is haunted." By early afternoon, I finally forced myself downstairs again. I needed proof that what happened was real. The basement looked perfectly ordinary. Warm temperature, no smell, nothing out of place. The framed photos sat normally on the shelves where I'd placed them the night before. The overturned stools were upright. Even the concrete floor, where I had seen the wet footprints, looked spotless. Titan followed me downstairs, this time without hesitation. That detail bothered me the most. For 2 nights, he'd refused to even approach the doorway. Now he casually walked around, wagging his tail like nothing had happened. I checked every window and basement entrance carefully. Everything remained locked from the inside. No sign of anyone entering. No explanation. Around sunset, anxiety started building in my chest again. I kept glancing toward the basement door. Without realizing it, Titan noticed too. Every once in a while, he'd stop playing and stare silently at the kitchen, waiting. Night arrived painfully slowly. By 11 p.m., I turned on almost every light in the house. I kept the TV volume louder than usual, just to avoid hearing the silence. Titan lay beside the couch, but unlike earlier, he wasn't fully relaxed anymore. At 1 a.m., the power went out. Everything instantly dropped into darkness. The TV died mid-sentence. The refrigerator stopped humming. Even the air conditioning shut off. The entire house became silent. Then Titan stood up low, growling. Filled the room, not barking yet. Just growling toward the kitchen. My phone flashlight shook violently in my hand as I moved toward the breaker box near the basement door. Every step felt heavier than the last. Titan refused to follow me. He stayed frozen near the couch. I reached the basement entrance and immediately noticed the door was slightly open. I know I left it closed. A cold draft leaked through the crack. Then I heard a voice. Soft, almost whispering, coming from downstairs. At first, I couldn't understand the words. It sounded distant and broken. Then slowly clearer this time. Help me, I stopped breathing. The voice sounded weak, human. Like someone injured. Every rational thought returned immediately. Maybe someone really had broken in. Maybe somebody was hurt down there. Hello, I called shakily. No answer. Then again, please. Titan suddenly started barking behind me, louder than ever before. He sounded furious, terrified, desperate all at once. I pushed the basement door open fully. Darkness swallowed the staircase below. My flashlight barely reached the bottom. The whispering stopped. I should have walked away. I should have grabbed Titan and left the house immediately. Instead, I slowly descended the stairs again. The cold hit harder than ever before. My breath became visible in the air. Halfway down, my flashlight flickered once, then twice. That's when I noticed the photographs again, except this time they weren't turned around. The glass frames had been shattered. Every single family photo was ripped. My stomach dropped. Then the whisper came again, right behind me, don't turn around. I froze completely. The voice sounded inches from my ear. Cold air brushed against the back of my neck. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Then Titan charged downstairs, barking wildly past me the moment he did. Something heavy crashed across the basement behind us. I spun around. For half a second, illuminated by my flickering flashlight, I saw a tall figure standing near the staircase. Its body looked unnaturally thin. Its face completely dark. Like a shadow shaped into a person. Then the flashlight died. Total darkness. Titan lunged forward, snarling viciously, while I stumbled blindly up the stairs. I slammed the basement door shut behind us and shoved a kitchen chair underneath the knob. Something slammed into the other side immediately. Boom. Titan barked nonstop. Another slam shook the door. Boom. Then silence. Complete silence. I didn't wait another second. I grabbed my keys, forced Titan into the car, and drove straight to a 24-hour gas station. Nearly 20 minutes away, I stayed there until sunrise. And when Marcus finally came home later that morning, his reaction scared me more than anything else had. Because he didn't look confused. He looked terrified. Marcus finally admitted his family had been hiding something about the basement for years, and what he told me made every terrifying moment suddenly make sense. Marcus arrived home just after noon. The moment his SUV pulled into the driveway. Like he hadn't seen him in years. Meanwhile, I stood there exhausted, pale and barely functioning, after spending the entire night sitting under fluorescent gas station lights. Marcus smiled at first. Then he saw my face. What happened? I didn't answer immediately. I just handed him the house keys and walked inside. His wife looked confused, while carrying luggage through the front door, but Marcus followed me straight into the kitchen. The basement door was still blocked with the chair. The second he noticed that, his expression changed completely. Slowly he asked, "You went down there, didn't you?" Every hair on my arm stood up. I stared at him. What the hell does that mean? For several seconds he said nothing. He just rubbed his hands together nervously. Then quietly he said, "So I did. I told him everything." Titan barking at 3:00 a.m., the freezing temperatures, the smell, the footprints, the whispering voice, the shattered pictures, and finally the figure I saw near the stairs. Marcus never interrupted once. He just listened silently while his face became paler and paler. When I finally finished, he sat down heavily at the kitchen table and looked toward the basement door, like it physically hurt him. Then he admitted something that made my blood run cold. "You're not the first person who's experienced something. Down there I felt sick immediately." Marcus explained that when they first moved into the house years earlier, Titan had constantly barked at the basement exactly the same way every night. Around the same time at first, they thought it was just the dog adjusting to a new home, but strange things kept happening. His wife heard footsteps downstairs when nobody was there. Cabinet doors opened by themselves. Family photos kept falling off the walls. And sometime during the middle of the night, they hear faint knocking coming from the basement door. 3 knocks. Always 3. Marcus claimed things eventually stopped. After about a year, Titan calmed down, the noises disappeared. Life returned to normal, or at least mostly normal. Mostly, I asked. Marcus hesitated. Then he told me the part he'd hidden from everyone. A man died in that basement years before they bought the house. Apparently, the previous owner lived alone after his family moved away. According to neighborhood rumors, the man became unstable after losing his wife and son in a car accident. Some people claimed he locked himself in the basement for days at a time. Then one winter, neighbors noticed they hadn't seen him in over a week. Police eventually found him dead downstairs. Marcus didn't know every detail because the records were mostly sealed, but he heard enough stories from neighbors to make him uncomfortable. Some said the man talked to himself constantly. Near the end, others claimed he believed something lived in the basement with him. Marcus laughed nervously while telling me this. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me since the gas station. What did I see down there? Marcus looked genuinely shaken. I don't know, he whispered. His wife suddenly entered the kitchen at that moment, looking upset. You told him? She asked quietly. Marcus nodded. That's when she added something neither of us expected. The previous owner didn't die alone. Silence filled the room instantly. According to her, an old neighbor once told her, police originally believed there was another person inside the house during the investigation. Someone else's footprints were reportedly found in the basement near the body. But no second person was ever identified. No missing persons. No evidence anyone escaped. Nothing. The case stayed unresolved. I laughed nervously, trying to break the tension. Okay, you guys are seriously freaking me out now. But neither of them laughed back. That terrified me more than the story itself. Before leaving, I helped Marcus move several old storage boxes upstairs because neither of us wanted to go near the basement alone anymore. While carrying one of the boxes, I noticed something scratched faintly into the wooden basement door. Words I somehow hadn't noticed before. 3 simple words. Don't let it out, I froze. Staring at them, Marcus quietly admitted. Those scratches were already there when they moved in. He never removed them. Didn't want to touch them. I left immediately after that conversation. And for the next 2 weeks, I barely slept. Every night around 3 a.m., I'd wake up suddenly, expecting to hear scratching outside my bedroom door, but the worst part came later. Because Marcus called me one final time. And what he told me made me swear never to step foot near that house again. 3 nights after I left, Marcus woke up at 3 a.m. to find Titan standing outside the basement door again, except this time the basement door was already open.